Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracarya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Sri Radha Krishnaya Namaha. Om Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Manish, blank this, hit the B. Yeah. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome everyone. Welcome also to those who watch the classes online later. We're going to start a new text today, as you know. The last text we studied here was the Prashnottara Ratnamalika, which was focused mainly on practices and attitudes in the context of worldly life. How to live a dharmic life, what our duties and responsibilities are in society, so that we all can benefit from this living. It also focused on things like dhanam, the requirement to give, right conduct, proper speech, and ethical living, really to help us be conflict-free. Many people, you've heard some people, or you might yourself have thought about this, I'm a good person. Anybody here think they're not a good person? Sometimes, yeah. Most of us, we think we are good people. We are not committing big crimes or papams. We are doing good the best we can. You're doing all your duties and responsibilities, taking care of your family, taking care of your children. And sometimes we feel if we do all this, life is okay. We should be okay. We are okay. This is true to some extent, but even people who do good, who lead a dharmic life, who lead a pious life, who are kind, who are religious, who are socially conscious, environmentally conscious, all the good traits you can find in humanity. Do such people struggle in life? And because of that struggle, do they suffer? So just living a dharmic life alone isn't enough to give us peace of mind, to make us happy. We do get, obviously by doing good things, we do get happiness, little bit of happiness here and there, now and then. But is that enough? So you've heard Swamiji say this, on your 99% of the time, supposing your life is so good in this life, your 99% or 364 days of the year, you're okay. You don't have any problems, you're not struggling, you're happy, you're at peace. Children are behaving, no issues with spouse, no issues at job. But on that one day, supposing you're asked, on the one day of the 365 days, if you're asked, are you okay today? On the one day that you're miserable, that things are not going how you want them to go, things are not going how you would predict them to go. So we all struggle in life, we all suffer, and we all are seeking pretty much the same thing. We all want to be happy, we all want to live this life in peace, and we don't want it just for a short time, just for the 364 days, we want it for 365 days, this year, next year, following year, every day of our life. So merely living a life of dharma is like the least common denominator, the minimum requirement to live conflict-free. But even after living a life of dharma, we can struggle. We do have struggles in our life. So we need, besides cultivating dharma, besides living dharmically, besides being kind, besides being religious, pious, we need other practices that will help us grow spiritually. We need to develop practices that will give us that ease, even on that 365th day, the one day when you're feeling like your life is going haywire. So practices that will lead to lasting contentment, lasting peace, lasting happiness, and free us permanently from this life of struggle. And life of struggle free us permanently now. You know, many times, and you've heard, Hindu religion is has wide teachings. And the majority of them will say, like the Abrahamic religions, if you do good karmas in this life, good actions in this life, you'll go to heaven. You'll get a better life in the next life. That is all fine, but what if you don't? Firstly, we don't know what heaven is, except what's described in the scriptures. What if you don't care about going to heaven because you don't know? Supposing you were planning a vacation and you don't know anything about the place you're going to. It's going to be harder to do the planning, right? You have to get more information. So how do we get information about heaven? You read the scriptures, it might describe heaven where you're sitting at the Vishnu Loka, you're sitting at the feet of Vishnu, or you're at Shiva Loka, you're in Vishnu Loka really. The Vaishnava tradition elaborates this a lot more. There is constant music playing, you're sitting at Vishnu's feet and you're looking into his eyes and you're like just enamored and engulfed with love, which is all great. But there is no guarantee and there is no proof of what that loka is and whether you'll go to that loka, right? So the text we are about to begin is called Sadhana Pancakam, and it is the perfect text because it focuses not on like the Prashnottara Ratnamalika, which focused on dharma and society. The text focuses on ourself, on our spiritual practices, on disciplines that we can cultivate to have this permanent peace and lasting contentment. So this text is attributed to Shankaracharya. This has to show up for the recording. Good, yeah. So this text is attributed to Shankaracharya, as and many of you know, our Swami-ji and Puja Swami-ji, we are learning in this tradition of Shankaracharya, in this tradition of Advaita Vedanta. Shankaracharya has given us many texts and they range. So for example, there is a text called Eka Shloki, means just one verse. It's a profound text on the Advaitic teachings in just one verse. Then he's written many Ashtakams, 8 verses. This Dakshinamurti Dhyana Shlokas composed of 8 verses. he's written Dashakam, or 10 verses. There's a famous, very elaborate commentaries on a text called Dasha Shloki, 10 verses. Then he's written Shatakams, 100 shlokas, and a very famous studied one is Saundarya Lahari, very high poetry. And he's also written Sahasranamas with 1,000 verses, like the Upadesha Sahasri we were studying a couple of months back. So the text we are about to begin is a very short text, a Pancakam. Pancakam means 5, a group of 5 verses. Pancakam, and it's a Sadhana Pancakam. Sadhana means a means. Sadhana, the literal meaning of sadhana is a means or a way. A way for what? To attain a goal, to reach an end. The goal is called sadhyam. What you want to reach is called sadhyam. And the seeker, the person who wants to attain the goal, is called sadhaka. So sadhana, which is a way to reach a goal by the seeker, by the sadhaka. There are other names for this text, one of which more famously called as Sopana Pancakam. Pancakam, again, the set of 5. Sopana means a flight of stairs or a ladder, a flight of steps. And it's called Sopana Pancakam because it's a series of sadhanas or disciplines that are given in a very graded manner. Like when you climb up a ladder or climb up the steps, you start with step 1 at the bottom, and then your legs can't reach step 5. You have to go to step 2, step 3. So in a very gradual manner, these sadhanas or disciplines are given. There are 5 verses and about approximately 8 sadhanas, 8 disciplines in each verse. So about 39 there's one verse which has one less. So about 39 to 40 disciplines or sadhanas, which ultimately culminate in enlightenment. So these steps, climbing these steps of a ladder of this sadhana Pancakam or Sopana Pancakam lead us to enlightenment. It's also called Upadesha Pancakam. Upadesha means instructions or teachings which are given to a seeker, anybody who wants these teachings. Another name for it is Advaita Pancharatnam. Pancharatnam means 5 jewels, and Advaita Pancharatnam because it deals with Advaitic teachings in the Vedas. The Vedas are this huge body of scripture and literature. A very small portion of the Vedas deals with Advaita Vedanta, deals with recognizing or finding or knowing your true nature. So these are instructions on what one has to avoid, what one has to do, and it gives us values for the seekers that we need to cultivate. So it's a very simple, short, profound text for a life of sadhana. And it's a short text, but it's packed with a punch. Is that a slang? It's got punch in it. There are 2 commentaries written on this Pancakam. So there's just 5 verses, but commentaries, people have written elaborate commentaries on this very short text. One is a commentary by Sadashiva Swami. It's called Upadesha Pancharatna Karika. Karika means a commentary in verse form. And another one is written by Balakrishnananda Saraswati, and it's called Kiranavali. And this commentary is in prose form. So the first commentary is a verse commentary on the verses, and the second one is a commentary in prose form. So in one of these commentaries, I think it's in the Kiranavali, the pain of samsara, the pain of daily living, is compared to a huge burning fire. And it says we are all struggling immensely, intensely, because we are in that fire and we want to get out of that fire. So supposing you're in that fire and you're not quite beginning to feel the heat. You're not, it's just the fire is a very, so if you just take an example of our lamp on the altar. If you put your hand just above the lamp for a few seconds, you know, when you take the Aarti lamp to your eyes, you don't get burnt. But if you hold your hand there for more than a few seconds, for a minute or two, you're going to start feeling the heat and you want to pull it away. So this commentary says our lives are like we are in this burning fire, this life of struggle, this life of strife. And we may not know that in the beginning when things are going all honky-dory, there's no problem, everybody is doing what they should do, everybody in your life is behaving according to how you want them to. But then soon the flame starts growing a little bit more and a little bit more, and before you know it, you're in that fire. And when you're in that fire, the first thought is what? You want to get out of that fire. You want to jump out of that fire. So the commentary compares all our pursuits in worldly life that we do to become happy are very limited. It doesn't give us perfect, uninterrupted, permanent happiness. And all our worldly efforts in life so far to gain that perfect peace on that one day when you're asked whether you're okay today, all our worldly efforts have failed so far. We pursue them because we think they're a means to happiness, but they are not. So what's going to change if we continue to do the same? You come here for once a week Saturday class, maybe you come on a Sunday class, you go out from here, listen to some nice teachings, get inspired, go out, maybe the inspiration lasts for a day or two, and then comes Monday, you're back to your job, and all the struggles come back again, all that unease, that dis-ease comes back again. So a seeker or the sadhaka we first need to discover what our goal is and then figure out how to accomplish that goal. So our goal, this text, is a way to find happiness. It turns inwards towards spiritual practices, towards spiritual sadhanas, and it gives us a solution for quelling that raging fire that we are in, that fire of samsara. It gives us a way to get out of that fire. It gives us the wisdom, the commentary calls it sukha sadhanam, a means for sukham, a means for happiness that is not only 364 days of the year, but all the time. And just as the first few steps of the ladder, when you climb a ladder, depending on where the ladder is pointing, the first few steps of the ladder help you get direction on what direction you're climbing up. So to this the first verse of the text gives us direction to even figuring out, discovering what our goal is in life. We all have so many goals in worldly life, right? And as I said a few seconds back, fulfilling those worldly goals may have got us some happiness, a little bit of sukham here and there, but they've not made us permanently happy, at ease all the time. So once we recognize the goal, then what are the steps required to reach this goal is also given in this text. And the whole scheme of life, almost the whole scheme of life, as envisioned by the ancient rishis. And what I mean by that, in ancient times, life, the scheme of life or the living of life was based on varnas and ashramas. Varnas means what class or what your birth was, which family you were born into, and the ashramas were what stage of life you were in. So the 4 varnas you might have heard is the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Unfortunately, they are taken as a caste system, and that's a corruption of the original intent of this varna system. The 4 classes were really based on the role or contribution of the individual to society. What was their profession? How did they contribute to society? And it was meant for social harmony and growth. We've culturally later, this varna system got, like I said, got corrupted, and it turned to the caste system, and it became injustices were done based on what class you were born into, whether you were born a Brahmana, whether you were born a Kshatriya, and that is really an unfortunate misrepresentation of the varna system. And then the ashrama system, the brahmacharya ashrama, the grihastha ashrama, the vanaprastha ashrama and the sannyasa ashrama were really based on 4 stages of life, and they were meant for individual harmony and growth. So social harmony, the varna system, and the ashrama system based on individual harmony and growth. So this text starts with the study of the Vedas, because all this material is what is given, all this information we get from the Vedas, and it progresses to each step, climbing up the ladder, and culminates, it ends with being established in the ultimate reality, in that infinite, everlasting ananda peace at the time of death. Not only at the time of death, but right now, while still living. So for those of you who like to make notes, the PDF of the text is available, posted on our website. And you can listen and repeat at first. Vedo nityam adhiyatam, Vedo nityam adhiyatam, taduditam karma swanushtiyatam, taduditam karma swanushtiyatam, teneshasya vidhiyatam, teneshasya vidhiyatam, apachitif kamye matistyajyatam, apachitif kamye matistyajyatam, papaugaf paridhuyatam, papaugaf paridhuyatam, bhavasukhe dosho nusandiyatam, bhavasukhe dosho nusandiyatam, atmecha vyavasiyatam, atmecha vyavasiyatam, nijagruhaturnam vinirgamyatam, nijagruhaturnam vinirgamyatam. So you notice in each of the lines, it ends with this tam. So Vedo nityam adhiyatam, karma svanushtiyatam, vidhiyatam, matistyajyatam. So this tam ending is in Sanskrit imperative mood, passive voice, third person singular, and it implies a command or more a prayer or a wish. If you didn't understand what imperative mood, passive voice, third person singular is, don't worry. We don't care about that. I was just bringing up this. So this whole text, the 5 verses, since they all end in tam, they're kind of telling the sadhaka, the seeker, not commanding you should do this, you must do this, but saying if you do this, you're going to be happy. You're climbing up that ladder. If you follow these sadhanas, you'll have the preparedness to gain that everlasting contentment. So the first line, Vedaha nityam adhiyatam. Adhiyatam means study, learn, or memorize. Memorize what? Vedaha. Veda means the Vedas. Literally, Veda, the word Veda comes from the root vid. Sanskrit root vid means knowledge or to know. So it says, study, learn, or memorize the Vedas. And when? Nityam, daily, all the time. So the text begins with a very daunting practice. Study the Vedas every day. And why is this daunting or scary? Firstly, the Vedas are in Sanskrit, and most of us don't know Sanskrit. Actually, just a remark on that. So there are, many of you know Swamiji's 6-month online intensive course in Advaita Vedanta meditation and Sanskrit is going on currently. And I get many emails, or Swamiji also gets, or admin people also get emails from students. And I agree, Sanskrit is not an easy language to study. It's a lifetime study, really. What I think I have studied, what I think I know is not even the tip of the iceberg. So there's so much that you can study. So many of the emails, some of the emails that we get, especially from people, we are just beginning to learn the script. They're struggling with the script. And if you don't know the script and you don't know some basic topics, you're never going to be able to go further. So they ask, why should we study Sanskrit? Why is Sanskrit part of this online course? And Swamiji's reply, and you may have also heard him say, do you need to know Sanskrit to become enlightened? If you don't know Sanskrit, can you attain perfect contentment and peace all the time? Sure. If you have a proper teacher, a good acharya, if you study under a good acharya, who can unfold the scriptures in a very systematic way, you don't need to know Sanskrit. But then, you don't need to know Sanskrit to become enlightened or to have that perfect contentment. You can read a translation and get the meaning of what you're reading. But Swamiji has also said many times, even the best of translations are not quite enough. If you really want to get into the depth, into the nuances, into the thinking or the brains of the rishis who wrote these texts, and you want to get really understand what they mean, a best translation will not help. So you have to learn the language. In ancient times, these Vedas, the 4 Vedas, they were studied not only with the Vedas, but they also were required to study Vedangas, which were the 6 auxiliary scriptures which supported the study of the teachings of the Vedas. Like in a college, when you go to attend college, you have a major subject and then you might have a couple of minors, right? So the Vedangas were like that. So why study the Vedas? The first line says, study the Vedas, you should study the Vedas. So the Vedas give us the goals of life. Vedas tell us, right now we all know what our worldly goals are. Most of us know. Some of us still struggle with knowing what is my goal in life, but many of us know what our goals are. But Vedas tell us what are the goals in the big picture of things, and they also show us how to get there. Excuse me. So it's like if you buy a complicated gadget or a complicated instrument or piece of furniture, I know most guys will try and fix it without looking at the instructions. And you might be very good at that, hats off to you. But doesn't it make sense for those of us who are not mechanically challenged, you read the instructions. If it was me, I read the instructions and I still won't know where the right screw goes, and some of us are like that. You need to get the instructions to figure out how to fix that gadget or assemble that piece of furniture. So we first need to study the Vedas. And you might argue, in present day and time, in ancient times, fine, Vedas were very important because everything that people knew, a lot of what people understood came from the Vedas. In the present times, we don't really study the Vedas, one, because we don't know Sanskrit. So when it says in adhiyatam, when it says study the Vedas, in our context, we can take it to mean any scriptural study. It could mean the Bhagavad Gita, it could mean a small stotra like this Pancharatnam, it could mean Parayana, meaning mental recitation of Vishnu Sahasranama, or any spiritual practice needs to be done. And the reason for that is, with this, as we climb up these steps, as we do these sadhanas, these teachings will help us realize the ultimate goal of life. Right now, we are all looking at worldly goals, pursuing worldly goals, but the ultimate goal is really when you are at that stage that you feel, I don't need to fulfill any other goal to be happy. I am okay as is. That is the culmination of these teachings. And says adhiyatam implies read or study, but important to do it with understanding, with meaning, and not just blindly. If you read something, like if you took up a foreign language, like say French, and you just read it, the script is Roman in English, and you don't understand what it means, what's the point? So the same thing applies. This adhiyatam means study with meaning, and nityam, daily. Why does it say study daily? How often do we eat in a day? 3-4 times, right, or more. How often do we shower? Not once a week, every day. So we need, just as we need sadhanas, practices for our physical body to keep our physical body healthy, we also need sadhanas for our mind to keep our memory sharp and to keep in touch with these practices daily. And I have noticed for myself, if I'm learning to chant something new, I'm very, very enthused, and I start first week every day, second week every other day, third week once a week. By the fourth or fifth week, I've already forgotten the swaras. I've already forgotten the meter. So if you don't do something persistently, if you don't do it daily, you're likely to forget it. So the 6-month course, again, this online course is a very structured. It requires you to study, some form of study, every day for an hour at least. And this first line of the verse, Vedaha Nityam Adhiyatam, corresponds to the Brahmacharya ashrama, the student life, because in ancient times, the students, brahmacharis, were expected to pretty much, I think, from age 8 to 20 or 8 to after 19, 20, they were expected to study. That was their main responsibility. So this first step of the ladder, the first rung, is do some form of daily study of scriptures. Do it daily. The next line, tad uditam karma swa anushtiyatam. Swanushtiyatam. So su anushta. Anushta means perform or do, and su, do it well. Do it wholeheartedly. Do what wholeheartedly? Karmas. Here, do karmas or duties, rituals wholeheartedly. What kind of rituals? Uditam, that are mentioned, that are said, tat, there. Where? In the Vedas. So the karmas in the Vedas must be done well. So most of you, as I just said a few minutes back, the bulk of the Vedas talks about rituals, performance of rituals. Vedic karmas or rituals, so in ancient times karma means ritual. We'll talk about what it means to us now. There were three kinds of karmas or rituals that are mentioned in three kinds of rituals or karmas that are mentioned in the Vedas. They divided, different texts will divide them into 3, 4, or 5. But the three broad categories, one was the nishkama karma. Nishkama karma means the mandatory injunctions or mandatory karmas, something like, example like Sandhya Vandanam or chanting of the Gayatri. These were to be done irrespective of whether you like them or not. You can think of it like if you're sick and you go to a doctor and the doctor gives you a medicine, especially this happens with children when you have to take like a syrup and the syrup is really bitter. You're not going to tell the doctor, I don't like that syrup, so I won't take it. You have to take a medicine to get better. So in the same way, these nishkama karmas are mandatory karmas. They are to be done for betterment of our mind, for purification of our mind, for quote unquote spiritually purifying ourselves, for our spiritual well-being. The second form of karma, the second category is called sakama karma. Sakama means with desires. So these karmas are based on individual desires. And these are optional. So for example, somebody wants to get more money, to have a good job, to earn more money. There were rituals performed for that sake. Or somebody wants to have a child. There were rituals prescribed for material well-being. It's important to note that the scriptures don't tell us worldly pursuits are wrong, that worldly pursuits worldly desires should not be pursued. They give us sakama karmas, they give us karmas to pursue our desires. But then they come and tell you that doing only things that you like to do is not going to give you permanent peace or happiness. And then the third category of karmas is called nishiddha karma. Nishiddha means that which are prohibited, which are banned, actions or rituals that should not be done. Things like harming others, lying, consuming alcohol and non-vegetarian food were a big part of also mentioned. And why were these prohibited? Because they're obstacles to our spiritual growth. So the idea here is to increase our karmas that we do, our mandatory karmas, our nishkama karmas that we have to do irrespective of whether we like to do them or not, to decrease our sakama karmas, to decrease the karmas, desire-born karmas, and to completely avoid the nishkama karmas, those that are banned. And in ancient times, like I said, these karmas were mainly in the form of rituals, because rituals were the primary form of worship in ancient times. When was the last time we performed a ritual? Well, last time was 2 weeks back when we had a ritual in our anniversary, but on an individual level, you may not have performed a ritual in a long time. So in modern times, these rituals have been substituted. Of course, there are many Orthodox people who continue to perform rituals, and of course temples and all perform rituals. But a lot of the rituals have been substituted in modern times by other forms of worship. And one of the big forms of worship is prayer or puja. And so this line is saying, Tad uditam karma swanushtiyatam. Do your karma, now we'll take it to our lives, our present times, do your puja, do your worship well. So you might wonder, what does it mean to not do a puja well? You know, you're sitting at the altar, you're doing a puja. When would it not be considered, a prayer not considered to be done well? You're sitting at an altar and you're doing the puja mechanically. Your mind is gone away on anything, gone away wherever, it's gone away to wherever, except focusing on what you're doing. So that's a puja that is not done properly. Going to a temple is a form of worship. You go to a temple for worship. But if you go to a temple, say to meet your friends, that's the only time you get to hang out with them, that's an improper kind of worship. Or I know many people go to temples where they offer nice prasada. And the temples here have nice cafeterias. So I know somebody told me just a few weeks back, they first check the menu for that day in the cafeteria before they go to decide that they need to go to that temple. So these are obviously not the right reasons for going to the temple for performing worship. Usually all the actions that we do are prompted by our likes and desires. And if we do the karmas, if we do our worship with the right intent, then it brings clarity to the mind. When we don't want to do something, when we don't like something and we don't want to do something, we start to question. And this happens very commonly if you have raised children and a teenager, you tell your child, we have to go to the temple on Sunday for darshan. And the child asks you, the teen asks you, why should I go? Why do I need to go? What will I get? And I see a lot of parents who are bringing up children or who have brought up children in this country struggle a lot with the answers because they don't know the answers themselves. So if you have young children or if you are a grandparent with grandchildren, educate yourself in the correct way to know, so that you have a right answer to give your child. So a prayer is a simple sadhana and it has to become part of our routine. And why? So what do we get out of doing a prayer? One is it gives us an emotional relationship. It helps us form an emotional relationship with Ishvara, with the God of the universe. And it also softens our ego. And what I mean by that, when you are constantly do, go, constantly living a life like that, you end up taking a lot of credit to yourself if something goes well. I did it. This ahankara, this ego, becomes stronger and stronger. So by doing daily puja, by doing daily prayer, it kind of weakens the ego because you are saying, I'm not doing anything, I'm sitting in front of the altar, in front of Ishvara, and I am just an instrument for whatever Ishvara's order. This prayer is a very important sadhana, very important rung on this step of ladders. You climb the first step with study of the Vedas, and the next step, it says, is do your karmas, perform your worship daily, perform it well. If you don't do that second step, if in a ladder that second step is missing, it's going to be harder to lift your leg and go up to the third step. So this is a very important sadhana. There's a joke I heard some time back about talking about these teenagers, and sometimes even adults question, right, why do I need to do this? Why do I need to do a ritual? Why do I need to do shraddham? Why do I need to offer flowers or take something, naivedya? So there is this joke I heard, a mother is telling her son who is in bed, wake up, it's time to go to school. And the son turns around and says, I don't want to wake up, I don't want to go to school. So the mother asked the son, why don't you want to go to school? And the son says, all the kids in school tease me, they make fun of me, so I don't want to go. They don't listen to anything he says. So the mother, so I don't want to go. So the child is, I shouldn't say child. The boy is, the person that she's waking up is uncomfortable going to school. But she says, she keeps insisting. And she says, no, you have to go to school. And then the son asks, why do I need to go to school? And the mother says, because you're the principal of the school. So even adults ask questions, why should I do this? And that's something the Vedas, because it says study the scriptures every day, do your puja, worship well, we don't question. We don't question it. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 8, Lord Krishna says, Niyatam kuru karma. Do your karmas, do your duties, niyatam, always. So this verse is just saying, do your duties always and do them well. So we first need to know what our duties are. Many times people struggle with what is my responsibility, what is my duty, especially because if you're not taking karma in the sense of ritual, but applying it to our lives, what is my duty? It really depends on you, on your individual situation. What is your situation in life? Are you a parent? Are you working? Are you raising children? So you have your own swadharma. What is your dharma? What is the right thing for you to do? It's not simple to figure that out. And if you're not able to figure that out, talk to somebody. Get clarity. In ancient times, it was easy because there was this system of varna and ashrama. If you were in the brahmacharya ashrama, your duty was to study. If you were a grahastha in the grahastha ashrama, your duty was to make a living, support society. If you were born in the brahmana family, your duty was to teach, was to become a priest. Now times have changed. The distinction for what my personal duty is not so easy. So you really have to think about what your swadharma is, and it should be practical, irrespective of varna ashrama, because we are not living in ancient times. Sometimes people feel, when they are told you need to do your duties, they feel that binds them. When we go back to that being sick and going to the doctor metaphor, when you go to the doctor and the doctor, especially I think in Ayurveda and homeopathy, the doctor gives you some medicine and then a whole bunch of do's and don'ts. Avoid this food, avoid this, eating this, drinking this, at this time, that time. So if you take those medicines and follow the instructions that are given while taking those medicines, are those binding you? Those instructions are meant to make you feel better. So the duties shouldn't be looked upon as bondage. They are meant for our spiritual growth. And whatever your swadharma is, whatever your duty, whatever your karma, whatever your responsibility is, what's most important is the attitude with which you do them. That really is the key to doing anything well. So do your karmas, do your duties properly with the right attitude. So in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna talks about converting karmas, our duties, our actions, to karma yoga, the attitude with which we do them. So the next step in our ladder on the rung is tad uditam karma swanushthiyatam. Do your karmas, do your duties well. And I think that's a good place to stop because it's going to be time for the next class. We'll end with our closing prayer. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet, asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you all for coming. I'll see you next class.